Jackie's Warrior quickly in front here by 2 lengths. Here comes Jackie's Warrior up the inside to take over the lead from Life is Good. And Jackie's Warrior remains undefeated here at Saratoga, and he wins an unprecedented Grade 1 stakes at the Spa for the 3rd straight season.
We're in the home stretch now, just a couple of days before Breeders' Cup 2024. I'm Mike Welch, coming to you from Del Mar with the Daily Racing Form Breeders' Cup Clocker Report, brought to you by Spendthrift Farm, the home of 5-time champion sire Into Mischief, who will have Citizen Bull as a runner in this year's Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Well, the turf course was really the star of the show this morning, the busiest day yet by far on the grass course. It was sandwiched in between 2 very, very busy sessions on the main track early this morning and then again after the renovation break. But nearly 24 horses took the opportunity to either breeze or gallop on the turf course today. The stars of that show were the trainer Charlie Appleby's contingent, who opened gallop for the most part over the turf. I thought the best of that group by far, from what I could see this morning, was Notable Speech, who got everybody kind of 2-minute licking, but Notable Speech really opened it up through the stretch, looked strong, finishing his morning session today. We'll start, though, bright and early this morning, though, right away. It was a chilly morning, but the action got hot and heavy right off the bat. Ushpa Tesoro, one of the first horses on the track, actually blew out a half-mile today. We've seen a lot of these Japanese horses, similar styles. We saw several more as the day progressed, but Ushpa Tesoro easing away from the half-mile pole in about 29 and change, and then really striding out through the lane, 24 and 3 to the wire before easing up into the turn. I thought he's looked good here all week, save for that little incident a couple of days ago, but that's in the rearview mirror now. I think he's going to run a big race. He's, like I said, I think he's flying a little bit under the radar in this year's Breeders' Cup after being one of the choices in the race a year ago. One other worker, again, another Japanese horse, worked before the renovation break. That was Meta Max, who's heading for the sprint. And same thing as Ushpa Tesoro, 29 opening quarter, finished up strong, galloped out willingly into the turn. Right after Ushpa Tesoro, everybody waiting for Torpedo Anna. Yesterday, an easy day for her. Just jogged a couple of miles, visited the paddock. But today, she was really on her again. They really let her zip around there this morning. Galloped 1.5 miles, did it with tons of energy. Got stronger the faster she went. Was kept out in the middle of the track from doing even, to keep her from doing even too much more. But I thought it was an excellent day for Torpedo Anna, who obviously is going to be a heavy, heavy favorite in the distaff, and is really one of the stars of the show, the queen, actually, at this moment of this year's Breeders' Cup. And speaking of the sprint, we talked about Meta Max. I thought Straight No Chaser looked terrific this morning. Now, look, he's a speed horse in a race absolutely loaded with speed. He's a horse that likes to run on the front end. There's about 3 or 4 of those in the race. So, Federal Judge, Mulligan, Skelly. So I'm not sure how that's going to pan out, but boy, did he look good today. He was just full of energy. Ryder had all he could handle to pull him up, finally pull him up all the way back down the backstretch and into the far turn. So it was a good morning for Straight No Chaser. Also, Full Count Felicia was in runoff mode too, really runoff mode. I got a little worried there. The rider kind of angled her out to the near the outside fence and was really running off around the turn before finally coming to hand down the backstretch. And another horse in the morning session that's looked good on a regular basis, actually, and is full of himself in the morning, and that's 3 Technique, an imposing-looking horse, and the rider had his hands full with him this morning as well. Back on the turf now at 7:15. Before the main track was renovated, we had several workers. Rusham Park, who has looked good here on a regular basis. I had him going 5/8 around the very wide dog, so take that into consideration when you're looking at these times. In 1:02 and 4, kind of mild urging to finish. Geoglyph, who I've mentioned several times here as catching the eye Worked a few days ago with a huge gallop out, came back and breezed again this morning. 5/8 in 103 and 3, but it was the last quarter mile that really mattered. 23 and 3 down the lane, did it going fairly easily. So he looks like a horse that could be also flying under the radar at a big price in this year's Breeders' Cup. Other workers, stablemates for Michael Appleby, Big Evs, who won the Breeders' Cup juvenile sprint last year, turf sprint last year, worked 5/8 in 103 with a good finish. The rider jumped off him and jumped right on his stablemate, Big Mojo, and I thought he was even better. 5/8, half mile for him in 50 and 4, but the last quarter there in like 23 and 3 with a strong gallop out into the turn. So a good day on the grass for Big Mojo. Other horses, I got to see Soprano kind of stretched his legs. 26 and 3 the last quarter on the grass. New Century was a bit green, but looked good. Galloped easily, kind of switched leads late, but I thought he looked good coming down the stretch. Like I said, Notable Speech was the best of the, in my eyes, of the Charlie Appleby bunch. Rebels Romance led the group, was on his left lead, but looked good out there this morning. Beautiful Love was well in hand. I thought she looked good today, too. And as did Shayahar, who opened, galloped, and then picked up the pace, finishing strong in a blowout for him, too, over the grass. After the turf closed, we renovated the racetrack, came back on the main track. Most of the Breeders' Cup Classic horses were out there during that second session this morning. The most recognizable, obviously the easiest to recognize, Arthur's Ride. He had his ears up. He quickened his strider on the turn. Thought he looked good today. I thought Sierra Leone looked good today. Highland Falls was really full of himself. His rider, she had her hands full just keeping him on the ground today. And then we have to talk about, obviously, the Aidan O'Brien group. They spent a lot more time out in the track today. They jogged. They spent a lot of time schooling at the gate, turned around, and then galloped off. And again, of course, the all eyes on City of Troy. Now, we talked about him yesterday. He got a little hot in the coat yesterday, but not today. He was cool as a cucumber today. He was on his toes, too. He's the second in line in that procession. He was running up on the heels of the horse that was leading the way in front of him. The one thing that's noticeable about City of Troy to me, though, anyway, he is unmistakably a horse with a turf action, a horse that would seem to prefer the grass to the dirt. So we're going to see how that works out. He obviously going to try the dirt for the first time and is the morning line favorite in the Breeders' Cup Classic. A couple other horses I want to mention after the renovation break. East Avenue catches the eye again every morning. He's doing terrific coming up to the sprint. I thought Post Time and Jonathan's Way, they actually were galloping alongside each other. I'm not sure if that was on purpose or it just happened that way, but both were full of energy coming down the stretch and going into the turn. So I like what I saw from that. I think both horses are coming up and have big chances in their respective races on Breeders' Cup Day. And Arzak, and a very aggressive galloper, he looked good again this morning, too. Fierceness doesn't wow you in the morning when he gallops, but he's been working well, and he's obviously in great form coming up to the Classic. I have to mention him as well, seeing him out there, too. And the final Breeders' Cup worker of the morning came out of the gate, and that was Hill Road, who's going to run in the Juvenile just 2 days from now. He looked really good. He burst out of there, went 48 flat, 24 the final quarter, and did it very easily. So a good morning for Hill Road. But like I said, he's up against the Juvenile this year. Starting with East Avenue is just a loaded race and one of the races I'm really looking forward to in this year's Breeders' Cup. There's a whole lot more I could talk about. We just don't have the time. There'll be a little more in the written version today. And then the Clocker Report will sum up more and more of these works that we've seen here, Santa Anita, around the country. That will be available. The Friday card will be available later this afternoon, and the Saturday card on Thursday. So again, we have one more real training session to go here, and then it's off to the races, Friday and Saturday, Breeders' Cup 2024. So keep it here. For the best coverage of this year's Breeders' Cup, it is, as always, at DRF.com.